Now let's dive into our first panel discussion based on the topic pay or consent. I'm now going to give the word to our moderator for the panel, Professor Dr. Markus Helfrich.
Thank you very much and welcome everybody for our today panel discussion or panel session, pay or consent. And I'm very happy to introduce not only my panelists this morning, but as well to discuss, I think, an interesting topic that leads in the nearer future to several points and discussions that have to be clarified not only within the academic area but within the practice as well. Some remarks on my person. I'm Markus Helfrich. I'm professor for international business law, IT and data protection law. And as an attorney at law, I got in contact with many companies, and I'm consulting since around about 30 years in data protection issues. So one can survive that, as you might see. So before I give you an introduction to our panelists, let me summarize or point a little bit on the main topic today. On April the 17th, 2024, so not long ago, the European Data Protection Board issued its Opinion 8/2024, which addresses a core topic on online platforms and information providers. The EDPB had to clarify the question if the concept of consent or pay models as implemented by large online platforms. So Meta had been one of the main focuses on that opinion. If this concept does comply with the concept of information and valid consent of the GDPR. The EDPB had been asked by the supervising authorities of the Netherlands, of Norway and Germany to take into account the decision of the European Court of Justice Bundeskartellamt, where, as we all know, we had let's say, the mingling between antitrust law on one side and data protection law on the other side, and focus on the question of freely given consent. So the question that had to be clarified by the EDPB had been if the valid consent as well might be not only a matter of antitrust law, but being in compliance with the idea of getting a consent as an alternative to paying for services. There had been a second limitation of the opinion of the EDPB. The second limitation is dealing with the scope of data processing. So the opinion focuses on gathering and compiling data for the purpose of behavioral advertisement. So this is maybe an important limitation, or let's say focus on the core question. I find it interesting what the EDPB itself highlights as a key finding. It says, as a quote, "In most cases it will not be possible for large online platforms to comply with the requirements for valid consent. If they confront users only with a binary choice between consenting to processing of personal data for behavioral advertisement purposes and paying a fee." So large online platforms should consider providing data subjects with an equivalent alternative that does not entail the payment of a fee. Offering a further alternative free of charge without behavioral advertising, for example with a form of advertising involving the processing of less or no personal data, occurs to be required by the EDPB opinion. Okay, that's as a starting point. Let me first give you a short introduction of our panelists today. I'd like to start with my dear colleague Barbara Schmitz. She studied law in Münster and Bonn. She has been working for 20 years in the field of data protection, IT law and selected compliance areas in various companies. Her professional experience covers telecommunication industry as well as lighting industry and media. She is a renowned specialist in data protection law and practice. She's involved in the development of legal doctrine in the key areas of international data transfer and payment with data. So more or less our today topic. She's much in demand as a lecturer and speaker at professional conferences and in training events. And not to forget, she's regularly publishing, she's a publisher in professional journals. She's co-author of commentaries and member of the scientific advisory board of the Zeitschrift für Datenschutz of the Beck Publishing House. My second panelist, Ms. Caroline Loy. So she studied law at University of Erlangen and worked previously as a lawyer in civil law. That's an interesting side aspect of our today topic because you know the other side of the table, let's say. Since 2020, she's a member of the Bavarian Data Protection Authority for the private sector. She's responsible for e-privacy, internet and digital services. And since 2022, she is head of the staff for European cooperation. And since April this year, she's working as press and public relations officer for the Bavarian DPA. Last but not least, Marco Kaiser. So maybe the one who affects the decision and the opinion, most of it from our today panel. He's acting as a CTO at Zeit Online. He's running software development and operations for the news portal Zeit.de and other online products since 2013. He became a member of the executive board for Zeit Online GmbH in 2019 and is responsible for producing technical audience management and data protection. Before his actual role, he worked at various international and national startups as a head of product, director of engineering and CTO. So, thank you for your activity this morning, and I would like just to address as an opener one question to all of you. Quite a simple one. What were your initial thoughts on the EDPB opinion, pay or consent? And maybe you could give us some idea, where do we stand today, round about half a year after that opinion had been issued? So, maybe I would like to start with Marco, because you as the practitioner should be, in my point of view, affected most. So,
yeah, sure, thank you. I mean, when it came out, it was expected that it would come out. The question was more or less like, what will be in it and how strict will it be, and will there be a third alternative way or option that is requested? We all hope that it would not be in it, obviously, as we don't have it, but it was in it. So in the end, I mean, we always welcome to have like common regulation, common guidelines. The GDPR regulation market is so fragmented. Like in Germany, at least, we have like 17 different authorities. In Europe, many more. So it was always difficult to find one solution, one way to deal with consent in the GDPR sense that would kind of like work everywhere. So guidelines are good. Obviously, that guideline was not what we hoped for, or that opinion, but. And after like having a lot of discussions afterwards with other publishers, with authorities, and hearing statements also from our Hamburg DPC, Thomas Fuchs, that this was no longer his opinion, no longer his paper, it became very clear to us that this paper, this opinion does not really affect us in how we deal with pay or consent models. We are not a large online platform, although the opinion is not very specific in how it defines that term. But from what we hear from authorities, we are not kind of like the prime target of that phrase. That's maybe, you mentioned Meta as well, so maybe those platforms are more affected by this opinion. So for us, after some confusion at the beginning of how will this apply to us, it has become pretty clear that this is not for us. So right now, it hasn't changed much for us. We're more waiting for any further opinion or guideline or whatever that is what we hear coming at some point that is still under consideration between the different countries and in the EDPB, which might apply more to the whole market, to all businesses, and obviously that would have a bigger impact on us.
Thank you. Barbara Schmitz, with your experience from consulting and specifically media branch, what was your impression?
Yeah, thank you, Markus. My impression was at the first, it was not so surprised. After you mentioned this, after Meta and against Meta decisions from the EDPB and from the courts and the EU court, it was not so surprised, and it was as expected also in the extent from the statement. But your question about the direction and the status after this statement, from my point, it was the so-called contract solution. From my passion, it was a good basis to keep this approach and this argument in the statement for this solution to not only pay and consent or pay money and pay data in the contract.